Welcome to the Courting Happiness podcast. This is a space where self-care becomes part of your day. A space where you learn evidence-based strategies to help your life, share it with those you love, and cultivate well-being at work. I'm your host, Dr. Kortni Alston. I'm a former news director, television reporter turned happiness scholar, TEDx speaker, and transformational trainer. I also understand hardships. While working my dream job in television, I lived a nightmare suddenly becoming a young widow after 86 days of marriage. I became committed to learning more about resilience, healing, and happiness. This is how I discovered my area of research, which is positive psychology. Now I'm living my calling of training individuals and organizations on happiness. And my new chapter begins with being happily engaged. The Courting and Courting Happiness is about a true courtship. I like to say commitment with happiness. The K in courting stands for the vulnerability of sharing my story, inspirational interviews with phenomenal people, the infusion of positive psychology, and so much more. You'll learn how to commit to your well-being one episode at a time. I hope you subscribe and share. So, are you ready? Let's get started. I'm back. Hello, Courting Happiness community. It's me, Dr. Kortni Alston. Of course, you know that it has been a long time. I have been gone for longer than I ever expected. Because before I get to the because, I've actually been longer. I've been off longer than I've ever expected, especially as it becomes the inception of creating this podcast. I have created this podcast, I believe it's over 2 years, maybe hitting 3 years soon. And, I have been sick with a combination of busy, which is also great. A lot of great projects I'm looking forward to sharing with you in the future, which says a lot because I didn't miss a podcast episode last year, even though I had 2 surgeries in the same year. Yes, I said it. I had 2 surgeries in the same year, and I didn't miss an episode. Not one. Took pride in it, actually. I go, oh my gosh, I never missed an episode of this podcast, my podcast, our podcast. And I was in the hospital twice, 2 surgeries. But recently, I became ill, and it went from simple allergies to something not quite that simple. And that was that was interesting dynamic because what happened is that my fiance tested positive for COVID and shortly after me too. However, it's interesting because my initial test at urgent care showed that I was negative, had a negative result, and I had flu-like symptoms and found out later it was COVID, even though I was no longer infectious. And boy, did it take a lot out of me, even with being triple, quadruple boosted, I don't even, quite a few booster shots that Ken and I have. But to make a long story short, it took more time than I thought. And to be honest with you, that was weeks ago. I'm still suffering with a cough and some headaches under my doctor's care, following his instruction, which was to take lots and lots and lots of rest. But COVID taught me a lesson. It taught me an honest lesson about being honest about how I feel. COVID also reminded me to listen to my body. And COVID reminded me when listening to my body and when my body says rest, rest, rest. So for the past few weeks, I decided to pull back. And unfortunately, one of the things I ended up pulling back on was the podcast. And I will tell you that I went through all of these dynamics and I said, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to my audience? And I just genuinely love working on the podcast. It fills me up. But at one point I had lost my voice and feeling very fatigued. And so, I had to make some hard choices. And for me, a really hard choice was pulling back on the podcast. But I thought this would be a great podcast episode to talk about that. Have you ever felt that way? Have you had to make tough decisions like these before? Now, I will admit something else. I have often listened to other podcasts and thought about how hosts would take a hiatus. And now I will admit it is vital. It's really important to do that. A hiatus is really a great proactive approach. My quote hiatus was a reactive one. However, I'm going to be working on replicating what I see other podcast hosts do and to have a proactive hiatus or two throughout the year. And it really allowed me, granted, I was sick and still fighting some levels of it, but it allowed me to really relax, recharge, and rejuvenate. And I decided I need that. We need that. We need to shut down in order to really recharge ourselves. And we need to think about, what can we pull away from? What are the things that we can pull away from to kind of add to our time to give to ourselves? I'm curious. What do you think you need to pull away from? So I started to dig deeper. And of course, the researcher in me wanted to see if other things were out there as it relates to that. And of course, there's a bunch of articles talking about take a vacation, time off is great for us. But I was really drawn to this article that was published in Greater Good. Of course, you know, my favorite happy place. And it was titled, Why You Should Take More Time Off from Work. And it was written by Emma Seppala. Now, Emma discusses the importance of vacations and how they can relax us, but it also helps us. It can help us in terms of increasing productivity. Of course, I believe many of us have probably heard this before, but one of the things I do love, it can help boost creativity. So there's something about slowing down, recharging, relaxing, boosting creativity, and increasing productivity. And being idle, like daydreaming, can help us. So my bigger question to you is this: how are you making time for you? When's the last time you were idle, like doing nothing? Just sitting, being quiet, listening to nothing, maybe. Or sometimes might be watching your favorite show. Just going outside and just staring at the beautiful landscape, nature, watching animals, feeling the breeze, just being still. The gift of being still. So I want you to do this. I want you to carve out time in your calendar. Carve out time and take a break. Take a break, even if the meeting is the meeting with you. Put in your calendar, I'm meeting with myself. I've done it. I continue to do it. We need it. It's important. And I'm just not talking to you. I'm also talking to me, reminding me too. I hope you power down so you can recharge your life. I'm so happy I'm back. I'm looking forward to sharing more episodes with you. I'm so grateful that you are here. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea, if you also want to share your still moments of your happiness journey with me, please do. You can always email me at podcast@drkortnialston.com. That's podcast@drkortnialston.com. You can also visit the website at drkortnialston.com to share more and to learn more. But I will tell you this, I'm so grateful for you, because one of the things I love this podcast. I love getting messages from people who are listening. I love actually having a chance to speak with you. So please do email me. I really enjoy meeting so many people that make up our community. So don't forget, go in your calendar, make a meeting with yourself, take a break. And thanks for listening. Remember, your well-being is your most important job. See you next time. Let's continue this conversation online. Email us at podcast@drkortnialston.com. That's podcast@drkortnialston.com. Join us on Instagram at Courting Happiness. Don't forget, that's courting with a K. Also, I hope you join our private Facebook community. You can find us at Courting Happiness Podcast Community. Our private Facebook group is a safe haven to share, meet more people looking to build positive relationships, focus on well-being, and create a happier life. Now, are you ready to spread happiness? We hope you subscribe and share this podcast with your family, friends, coworkers, and all the important people in your world. We release a new episode every Thursday. Congratulations on your continued commitment to your courting happiness journey. Thank you so much for listening. We want you to be well, be happier, and be kinder to yourself. We can't wait to see you next week.